as well as our progress reports from all the county, the city, the other state updates, and kind of go through our agenda here. But I just want to welcome one of our new board members online, Todd Thurlow, and I see Todd is on. Todd, you want to say hi? Hi. Hello.
Yeah, unmute myself.
All right,
hey,
Todd.
Glad to be here, not just as a person sitting in the audience, but on the board now. So looking forward to helping out any way I can. Well,
Todd, you've been a real help all the way up to this time, and we really, really appreciate your helping us and serving on the board and helping guide the organization. So, but welcome. And Dr. Grant Gilmore is on the line up there in his home in Vero, I believe, right, Grant? Hey.
Yeah.
So Daryl, we ready to have Grant share his program?
Sure, I will stop my screen share, and Grant, if you can take over and put your PowerPoint up.
Share your screen, that'd be great.
Okay. Can everybody see it? Are we all set?
Not yet. Not yet. I don't see it, Grant.
Oh, shoot.
If you go down to the bottom.
You have to have your document open and then hit share screen.
Okay.
See down at the bottom.
It says host disabled attendees.
Hold on a second here. That was my fault. Let me go and unlock you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Now I've got to go back because we were doing that last night here. Let me go back to share screen. Advanced sharing here. Now try it, Grant.
Okay. Can you see that now?
Nope. No, if you could. Yep.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Now go to slideshow and you got it.
Okay.
Start slideshow. You want us to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Over there in the upper corner.
Okay.
There you go.
Hey, there we go. Great.
Right. Well, first of all, Mark asked me to give a talk on this for FOS a year ago. And since we gave that talk, I have to say that we've been attacked by scientists from around the state that we don't have these fish here. And a number of these will be people that be instrumental in, if we ever end up trying to protect them. And then at the Indian River Lagoon Symposium 2 months ago, after I gave a talk on the biodiversity of the lagoon, another scientist came up and said, no, none of that's true. And of course, at this point in my life and my age, and having collected
hold on a second, Grant. Can everybody mute, please, except for Grant?
Yeah, that was the reaction I got, actually.
I'll tell you what, Grant, I'm going to mute all, and then if you can start over. Okay.
Okay. Well, being an old guy and a sequestered old guy, I've been contemplating a lot of this, and I said, well, if this is the last talk I give, which who knows? There are people out there who have heard me before, I guess, but there's just so you all know, there's a collection of 5,000 jars of fish in a bunker at Harbor Branch that no one can go into. Not even me, for some reason or another, that documents these fish, okay? because many of these fish are no longer here. And Daryl asked me to address this, and I thought, well, this would be a good thing to address, not just these fish. And if you have to argue in the future, you as residents of Martin County or the Indian River Lagoon, to defend the fact that this lagoon contained a number of fish and other animals too. I mean, I study fish, but not just fish that are unique to this area and don't occur anyplace else in Florida in numbers. This supports a fishery out of the St. Lucie River. It's not one we're trying to protect, but there are thousands of these fish in the St. Lucie River. Go to the Caloosahatchee River in Fort Myers and try to capture this fish. You might get one or two, but it's certainly not a common one over there. Why? Okay, and I want the argument why this area, and this is from the perspective of a biologist who caught his first fish in Florida Winter Park as a bluegill 70 years ago. Grew up in Sarasota, did all my graduate work from Pensacola up here to the dried tortugas down here before I ever came to the East Coast. The cold fronts come down on that side. The continental shelf is 100 miles wide on that side. The warm current you can see here hugs this coast. Now, sure, as a kid, I dove the Florida Keys and the Bahamas, other places too. But I also collected every river in Florida, from Perdido down to Shark River Slough, down where that arrow is ending. I take this winter image every winter. Look at Florida Bay. It's colder than it is up here. Black drum and red drum spawn in that circle in Florida Bay. They don't spawn south of Fort Pierce or the Kennedy Space Center on this coast of Florida. This is tropical. This is the reason why we have these animals here, okay? And so after a criticism last year, I decided to call the state lab and ask them, how many fish collections do you make from Florida Bay to Pensacola on an annual basis? 600,000. Did they get any of these fish? No, they didn't get any of these fish. And no one's gotten them over the last 60, 70 years over there, okay? So, but I can take you today out there, and we want a big mouth sleeper, we can get a big mouth sleeper. You want a river goby? We can go get a river goby or the pipefish. You can't do that anywhere else in Florida, okay? Cold fronts come down, cool down that bay. There are a number of other things. That red line is our indigenous, it's Johnson seagrass. That's these fish we're trying to protect, and that's at least 100 species that you don't see on other coasts. Charlotte Harbor over here, this is Charlotte Harbor, okay? 230 to 250 species. Indian River Lagoon, 400. Documented in the museum. Another thing that makes us very different from other areas in Florida, here all your rivers, they go into the West Coast. I just took this down a couple of weeks ago when we had a strong east wind. Notice that the Bahamas are blocking that wind. You can look at the wind and weather underground. Wind stream is cool. You surf here. Once you pass that Bahama block at Jupiter, the coast angles back. It's eroding back. And all these coastal ridges form. In fact, Todd has a nice video of this, the inlets forming and filling up all along this coast. That's why these fish are here, actually. And so that is responsible for our biodiversity. And this ridge is constantly being moved back. There's a ridge here, and of course you drive from Stewart to Fort Pierce, you're on a ridge there. US 1 was on a ridge, I-95 is on a ridge. That traps fresh water. It doesn't connect us to Lake Okeechobee. It traps fresh water. We connected us to Lake Okeechobee. And when I started documenting this complexity here back in 1971, I was the first employee at the Harbor Branch. It blew me away. I knew the fish of Florida until I came here. So what is this? And then I came up with new species. The last new species from this lagoon was at the base of the Stewart Causeway 4 years ago, a goby, and I'll show it to you. wow, what's going on here? My God. And so you look at the area. This is the area. This is the epicenter of aquatic diversity in the lagoon and also in the country, because you can go and look at the fish list from Chesapeake Bay, look at the fish list from San Francisco Bay. It can't come close. And of course, this is when there were seagrasses there. You can see the seagrasses. You lose those seagrasses, you lose that biodiversity. You lose the algae, you lose the biodiversity. You pollute this river, you lose the biodiversity. Of course, all of that has happened. So the diversity is in this small area. It's incredible. You get largemouth bass over here, and you get sailfish over here. Within a 10-mile radius of this inlet, there are 800 species of fish, at least, have been recorded. And this habitat diversity, this is the habitat diversity and the fish I captured in these particular habitats over 48 years. And so what's happened to these habitats? Well, we know the oysters have had trouble, the seagrasses, even the sable-arid reefs. The coral is dying on this reef here. You no longer get jawfish down there. You no longer get sailfin blennies down there. And what's happened? And what's not on the radar, which was frustrating for me and a number of other scientists, is the plankton up here, the microscopic plants. We look at the bad ones, microcystis or whatever, red tide. But the majority of them are good and are necessary to feed all the larvae. And the benthos, the meiofauna, these are the microscopic animals who live in the sediments, and they're instrumental in feeding the mullet, the gobies, the moharas, a number of these other fish. It's not on anybody's radar. Mangroves are on the radar, seagrass is on the radar, but not this, and it's unfortunate. Diatoms are actually giving us the oxygen we breathe. They're microscopic. They're the most common plant in the ocean, and guess what kills them? Roundup and herbicides kills them. Isn't that something? The base of the food chain is knocked out by our herbicides, and the copepods eat, this is the microscopic crustacean, eat those diatoms, and guess who eats the diatoms? Your world record red drum here on my finger, okay? That's how the red drum starts. Not far from where I took this photograph, the guy asked me if I was going to use that the little red drum I was getting for bait. I said, well, are you going after red drum? He says, well, you don't want to use red drum for bait for red drum. This is a mohara. People, this is not on anybody's radar. It's not on the fisherman's radar. It's not on 90% of the, and what we do is educate them. That's what I'm trying to do. This might be the last talk I'll give. I'm going back to the book because I might not make it through this virus, at least leave something behind. So there's our circle around Sailfish Point, 800 fish species. That's the way it was. That's not the way it is today, okay? And the objective would be to get it back to the way it was in the 70s, 80s, and before. This was published 14 years ago. It was a paper by Marty Bouzas, a Smithsonian scientist, is one of the authors here. He had the longest data set on the Indian River Lagoon, period, collecting meiofauna, benthic organisms. Based upon our newly developed three-stage evaluation system of ecosystem decline over time, we find that the St. Lucie area is nearing, if not at the beginning of stage 3 local extinction. This is 14 years ago. This is before our big microcystis blooms. Benthic loving organisms, microscopic creatures, meiofauna. It's goby food, it's mullet food, it's mohara food. So here's the paper, The Martyrdom of St. Lucie. St. Lucie was martyred, by the way. Now your St. Lucie is martyred. And then the disease fish, the first ones brought to me at Harbor Branch in 1978 were from the St. Lucie River. And of course, the NOAA studies were done, and they were curtailed for some reason or another. The moharas, the mullet, the gobies, they all got hit. And what was happening to this time? I started in 1971. I came down to the House of Refuge and sampled that. And then this is the population of St. Lucie and Martin counties. Now I have a 2020 census I can put on there. I'm sure it went down, right? So, but it's people. And what can people do? What have people done? There was no beach renourishment when I came here. Now, I wasn't alone in trying to list these fish. There were 3 people before me. They were my godfathers. One was Ralph Yeager at Florida State University, who passed away about 20 years ago. Carter Gilbert, who's in his 90s now, who authored these things. They tried to protect the fish that I'm going to present to you that Martin County is trying to protect today. 1978. Then I participated in the next volume. Bucks Nelson at UCF did as well. He retired 20 years ago. I'm the only living one left. And so it didn't work. This is 1993. And then this guy, Ted Holmes, said, well, they probably shouldn't be imperiled because they're marine fish. And the criticism, Tyler Treadway published an article on Artins County effort to protect these fish around Christmas. And immediately criticism came out of the youngsters at Gainesville. Anybody under 40 is a youngster, or 50 these days. So not all these are marine fish. And 2 books came out on fishes of Florida in the last 2 or 3 years. One, Freshwater Fishes of Florida, one on marine fishes of Florida. And both of them state incorrectly that these are marine fish. They breed in freshwater, they have to have fresh water, no fresh water, they don't exist. And they're all here in the St. Lucie River. They're in the Sebastian River as well. So that was the argument. Now there's so much evidence that the National Marine Fisheries Service, which wouldn't take credit before, it was between NOAA and listing or National Marine Fisheries Service. NOAA thought the pipefish was marine, so they gave it a species of special concern. But only its larvae might be occurring out in the ocean. The adults never occur out of fresh water. They mature in freshwater, breed in freshwater, reproduce in freshwater, and actually reproduce in isolated freshwater lakes, like the big mouth sleeper. So here they are, the 9 we're trying to protect. That's the pipefish, which does well in aquaria. I had students that got their dissertations on this guy. The mountain mullet likes running water. We got it in the Halpatayoke, sword spine snook. You have the only fisherman, by the way, in the universe that can target these fish and know what they are in Martin, St. Lucie, and County. The big mouth sleeper is being caught by people here in this county right now. And how can a little fish stop pollution or any activity by the federal government? Well, this snail darter did years ago. And by the way, you have in Martin County one of the attorneys that studied under the attorney that won the Supreme Court case with this fish to stop that dam down there. Of course, the dam was built anyway, but darters are protected on the endangered species list. These gobies, which are the marine darters, and you have them. You have the rare gobies. Only place in the United States where you have all these guys. This one's a U species, base of Stewart Causeway's type locality, oysters. Fort Pearson, now, I don't have it on the list to be protected, but I do have this guy. Locals call it the dog-faced eel, the great snook bait, but it's actually a goby, one of the largest gobies on the planet, along with the big mouth sleeper that is being held here. This is a pond at Salerno. And this is Jay Honan, who's catching them for me. And then the most common fish larvae in the St. Lucie River is the naked goby. I just should call it the oyster goby because it needs oysters. And then I'm preparing this for the report to Martin County now. We have the habitat down for all of these species. Some are upstream flowing water. Some are quiet water predators, the sword spine snook, big mouth sleepers in here, and others like the mud bottom down at Palm City, Roosevelt Bridge, and that's these guys. By the way, the white-mouthed croaker may be described as a new species, as well as Goby morus dormitor based on genetic work that's going on right now. Only found here. Now, the broadly distributed predators, and this is a Doug Bosemeisler photograph. He's really good with a snook. He knows them. This one has only 50 scales. The other snook up 70, 80, 90 scales. Count the scales. You might have this guy. You're not going to catch it anyplace else, just here around logs. Same thing with the big mouth sleeper down here that looks like the walleye. And here it is from pond in Salerno. They're in these isolated lakes and ponds around Stewart. We didn't know that until last few months. And they're good to eat, by the way. Now, one of the best places for them was this place called Hog Pen Slough over here. In fact, they were caught by one of the guys getting gobies for me for since 1978 or 80. Of course, the bridge went right over that and wiped it out, which was where the largest sleepers in the area were caught. Mount Mullet, by the way, this one came from Halpatioke Preserve, the little rivulet there. The South Fork of the Halpatioke Reserve area is good as gold. So is the Loxahatchee River and Jonathan Dickinson State Park. And they're both in Martin County. And Martin County, going to protect these fish, I've been told by the Center for Biodiversity and others, as soon as our administration's changed in Washington, that the county doing this rather than this lone scientist will really be effective. The more people, the more public behind protecting these guys, the better it will be. Now, ironically, St. Lucie County, I hopefully is going to be participating and helping with this petition. This is a 10-mile creek after Hurricane Irma passage. Water's up 14 feet. It's over the road, 40 road. It's flood control structure. That's the river goat. He loves that sort of thing. And it so happens that Mike Middlebrook of the environmental department at St. Lucie County took these photographs of the fish. He said, "What is this fish?" I said, "That's the one we're trying to protect. Underway past the structure." And pipefish will do the same thing, except they like vegetation. They like to hide in the vegetation. Male-female pairs. The female-male do a little dance, produce sound. Female transfers the eggs to the pouch of the male. This is a pouch of the male open here. And she'll fill it up with 900 eggs. This is the ancestor to all pipefish and seahorses on the planet Earth, okay? This genus and species is found around the world. It's found in India, migrating 1,000 miles up rivers to the base of the Himalayas. It's called the freshwater fish there. You have the only breeding population in the United States between the Loxahatchee and Sebastian. They like smartweed. Smartweed's native, it's indigenous. They hunt for it. You see smartweed, the pipefish are there. This should be planted everywhere, and it should be protected. It should be herbicided. It's herbicided all the time by the state of Florida. Then we have this slice-cheek goby, first described in the United States from Sebastian, like sand bottom, just the opposite. And then these guys like the mud downstream, the burrow grunt, the white-mouthed croaker, which genetics is telling us the white-mouthed croaker might be renamed the St. Lucie croaker. Who knows? Dog-faced eel. Here they are coming up in the lawns when Irma went by. There were hundreds of them coming up in lawns up around Prima Vista. And the Tafoyas, who some of you may know, took these photographs and collected the fish, and we did the genetics on them. Some of the other fish are looking like they are indigenous to the Indian River Lagoon. Because they were separated, and I took all those slides out, basically, I think I did anyway, that they were separated from the ocean. And Todd did a great demonstration of this, if you go online and see his site, of how these inlets close, open, close with hurricanes. It's happening all around the Caribbean, Tortuguero Lagoon, Trinidad, etc. But what have we done? Well, we brought a lot of people in. This is where the largest big mouth sleepers were taken, hog pen. And that's Bruce Perry. And his hand, he caught 60 of these fish for me since October. The Bragg's route is in yellow, the line there. And fish come up here like that. Tarpon, by the way, come up there. So you hit the tarpon fishery as well. All these alternative routes, and you just, oh, well, let's go through the park. Yeah, and let's go through where the big mouth sleeper hang out. And of course, that's the Briggs Beach. It's finished now, of course. I haven't wanted to drive across it yet. And then we have all the other stuff that homeowners can do. We blame big ag. Well, ag, sure, they're putting pesticides and herbicides out. Well, what's at Home Depot? And when I was doing that biodiversity survey in the 70s and 80s, there was like no such thing as true green. There's no such thing as beach renourishment. And there are a million fewer people. Now we know, and I'm collecting one paper after another on what Roundup, glyphosate, will do. And there's emulsifiers, solvents, all kinds of other things mixed in there. There's a solution. And we don't know which is worse. We don't know. But what's coming out is those diatoms, the planktonic community, the neofauna is impacted. Nobody uses Roundup anyway. So. And then your lawns are connected to little ditches, they're connected to canals, they're connected to the river. And bingo, dead fish. And we can see microcystis coming out of the Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee, without question, is being hit by everything. And they still herbicide it. So what can you do to help? Well, stop using this stuff. Vote green. Why do you do it anyway? Oh, this is my lawn. Okay. There's a thing called clover lawns. That's my lawn. It's green. I've grown up in Florida. I never used fertilizer and I never used pesticides or herbicides. Why? Because I hated having to mow grass. You can't kill this stuff. And human mental perception of biodiversity is what it's dawning on me now. I said, this is beautiful. Okay, that's beautiful. It's glyphosate resistant. It's GMO. It's cloned. That's beautiful. This is the biodiversity most people see on planet. That's their biodiversity. Boy, are you lucky in Stewart. And, well, maybe unlucky in some places. Is this biodiversity? And this is where we inherited the lawn, by the way. If you look at the research on where lawns came from, they came from France to England. And boy, does somebody mow grass at these places. Anyway, that's where the American lawn came from. And now we want to go to Mars. We're going to spend millions of dollars going to Mars, this Death Valley. And why don't we just go out to Death Valley? I like biodiversity. Then you'll pay millions of dollars for this scene. I'm a marine scientist. I had 350 dives in submarines and God knows how many scuba dives. I like to go under that and see what's there. But people will pay millions of dollars for this view. And of course, the hurricane will come over the horizon one of these days. But that's the lowest biodiversity you can see. There's nothing there. There's some dead shells on the beach. But why do we have a great appreciation for deserts, this, and those scenes on Mars? I don't know. This is my front yard. Now, people hate this. They're going to be bitten by snakes, attacked by panthers, all kinds of other things. And I think that might be it, you know. We have embedded in our brain. And I dug this pond in the back to get dirt for my house. By the way, we planted all these trees. It was a grass field, 2 acres of nothing but grass. And we planted everything. And that cypress tree was a forestry sale. This one right here was a stick for $1. And that's its baby over here. And people can do this. And getting rid of that lawn. Anyway, just to know that you have very little left, almost nothing left. And my colleagues over at Charlotte Harbor that have come over here said, gosh, you don't have any habitat on the Indian River Lagoon. I said, yeah, you're right. I grew up on the Gulf Coast. Tampa Bay is gigantic. If you've ever been across the Sunshine Skyway, that's the entrance to Tampa Bay. Charlotte Harbor, Boca Grande, mile across. It's 3 miles from Sanibel to the coast on that causeway. Here's Charlotte Harbor over Martin County, and the San Luis River. We don't have anything left. We have to protect the little bit that we have left. And we have to get all these people here and here to understand what's below the surface of the water. And I was thinking if we could put these guys in aquaria, get kids to adopt the fish, take them home, take them to school or whatever, maybe we could change things around. And so, anyway.
Grant, I think that was fantastic. Yeah, I know if everybody can applaud, they're applauding for sure. Such an informative talk and such a great thing. And you know, I did have a quick question about the you mentioned smartweed. That's necessary for the possum pipefish. Can you tell us? I mean, why is that the smartweed?
Well, that's a really good question, Mark. And I've wanted students to look at it, but if you take smartweed, panic grass, and some of the other things like the giant reed and put them in an aquarium and you look at the underwater structure, smartweed is so much more complex. It has a great complexity. And so it only attracts the pipefish. I mean, some of the gobies are in there too. And believe it or not, this pipefish eats neonatal mosquito fish. As they give birth, the pipefish is eating their babies. It's a ferocious pipefish. So I think the structure has something to do with it. It'd be nice for kids to do experiments with the different plants to show that, or students somewhere. It's sold at nurseries, by the way. Smartweed is. It's found around the country. There are different species in different places. And it has a pretty little white flower. And so I really think there should be some concentration on smartweed. And of course, the pipefish, for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Does anybody have any quick questions?
Yeah, Grant, I have another question. That's me.
Jim?
You mentioned the loss of diversity in the meiofaunal communities. Is there risk of trying to promote sort of a monoculture of meiofauna? Or is there a bank of meiofaunal species that we could reinstitute or reestablish in the St. Lucie estuary?
Oh boy, that's a very difficult question, but I think the basic answer is if you clean up the water and what's going in, I mean, it's like muck removal. Is the muck gonna come back? Yeah. If you don't change your ways, it's coming back. So I think changing our ways would be the answer. And that's taking place at places up and down the lagoon. No lawn cuttings going into the water, that sort of thing, stabilizing banks and with native plants. But I think what we see here is a result of mismanagement of suburban, urban, and agricultural lands. If we had all these things dumped on Martin County from the county south of us for 20 years, that had a role in the sediments there. If that's not happening anymore, it's not happening anymore as far as I know, that meiofauna will come back. And this is one thing, as a biologist, I'll be long gone, but there might be somebody out there listening who'll be here in 50 years. I don't know. But I guarantee that the bass will be moving into downtown Stewart. Or, you know, maybe gobies anyway. But the things are going to change. And like if we're sequestered now and I have raccoons coming up to my back porch that never came there before. I mean, a female showing me her babies. I said, well, you never did this before. I've been here 32 years in this house. What's going on? Says the earth is going to take care of itself as long as we're sequestered. You can want to go out and plant something, but no, mama nature is going to take care of herself. And I think if you just let her do that, the meiofauna will come back, the plankton will come back, all this stuff will come back, and you can see it in places. You know, you can see it where we've opened up wetlands. It came back and did its thing. You didn't have to plant the mangroves. Right across from Harbor Branch was a wetland. I have a photograph. There's nothing green there. 300 acres, looked like it had been napalm. Open. 3 years later, you couldn't walk through the mangrove forest. Nobody planted those mangrove forests. They came in on their own. And so Mother Nature will do that if you give her a chance. You just have to change your ways. Do you really need to have your lawn as green as the next guy? And if so, does it have to be treated by a chemical company? You know, and are there other things you could do? And I think to me, that's the most creative thing, is for people to understand what their impacts are personally, and then change their ways. I mean, look at Delhi, India now that everybody's sequestered, or Madrid, you know. Wow, look at that.
So Grant, I know you didn't touch on it. You touched on it a little bit in the program, but what is the ongoing work you're doing with Martin County, and what's proceeding with that as far as listing these species or identifying, you know, the habitats and things? What's your work going on with Martin County?
Yeah, we're getting ready to put in a report showing exactly where these fish are found, habitat. Okay. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service wanted for the petition two things. They wanted where they're found, the habitat, and how much of that we have left. So we've been trying to map that, determine where they're found. That'll give us some idea of how many guys are out there and what the impacts might be. They will also want to know the genetics, and we were doing the genetics until the lab was sequestered. But what the genetics was telling us, that this big mouth sleeper looks like it might be an Indian River Lagoon big mouth sleeper. The genetics is being published on the white mouth croaker, showing that it likely is a new species, a cryptic species. And that's one of the common fish out of St. Lucie. So the genetics I wanted, and I said, well, you didn't do the genetics in bald eagles or the sea turtles or manatees. How come? He says, well, it's harder to get a listed species now. And right now, they're having extreme difficulty around the country. There are actually efforts to delist a lot of the species. So Martin County will have all the ammunition. Hopefully St. Lucie County will be with them in the next few months. And then there are attorneys that want to help with the petition itself. And then U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says it might take a year or two. Well, that's fine. It'd be nice to have another administration in there who wants to save part of the earth. But everything I've been told is because Martin County is doing this, and hopefully more public will be behind it, and that's your job and Tyler's job, then it will be more likely to go.
Well, thank you. Yeah, if you could just kind of keep us up to date as to when we can get involved or engaged with it, or if you got the report coming out to the county, please let us know those dates and times so that we can turn out and show up and participate in your work there. That'd be great. Well,
Mark, you can go find a clump of smartweed right now and get the pipefish and put them in your aquarium over there.
Okay. Yeah, let me get your help to do that. We'll
feed them baby mosquito fish.
We got plenty.
That's easy. Yeah.
Right here. Well,
I have a question.
Okay.
You had a list of things that we should do, like not use pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, and cleaning chemicals, but I didn't get the rest of them written down in time. What were the rest of those things you listed? They were on a slide.
Oh boy, I'd have to go back to that slide, but anything that you know is toxic, you read the labels. Or check online.
Yeah, Grant, this is Daryl. We'll have the PowerPoint up on our website, and we're recording this also, so the video will be available. And also, Grant, I think I mentioned to you before, but your picture there, because I've been in the film business, you have the best set decorating background design there that I've seen in a long time. It looks like it's been professionally designed. So
this is my wife's room. I'll tell her. It's not me.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Grant. Thanks again. And we'll kind of hopefully stay in touch, stay on. And like I said, if things come up, let us know for sure. We'd love to hear back from you and real soon about things, progress, and going forward.
Mark, it's Nick
yeah.
Mader. Can I ask one quick question
Sure.
for Grant?
Sure.
Hi, Grant. It's Nick Mader. You mentioned 3 species of fish that were in the St. Lucie, kind of North and South Fork area. The white-mouthed croaker, the burrow grunt, and was the other one the violet goby?
Yes. The locals know it as a dog-faced eel, but it's
okay.
It's actually not an eel. It's a goby. It's a violet goby.
Okay, thank you.
And,
yeah, I know
that was downstream mud bottom.
Okay, yeah, and they burrow in the muck, a lot of them?
Well, the goby does, yeah.
Okay.
The others feed across the surface, probably on shrimp and crabs and other things.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a good question, Nick. And I think if those of us who are in the area, if we had a kind of a list of those species along with a photo or a picture, we can keep our eyes out. That'd be kind of great. And at least it educates us as to what they are, what they look like, and trying to educate people in the area about, hey, these are fish to look out for. They have critical habitat here. They're really important to our ecosystem. So it'd be nice if we could just produce maybe a little guide, just a very quick guide on, what they are, what they look like.
I agree.
Right. Actually, we're actually doing that. It's a book on these fish in the St. Lucie River. So they'll be feeding, spawning, everything. So that actually has been precipitated further by this effort by Martin County. And so everything that we know right now, there's a lot we don't know. And that's where, all our students in the area can really help out. But we'll introduce you to the fish, how to identify them, how to identify these different snook that people should be looking at, and where they're found in Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Indian River County for that matter. So that's coming. And hopefully, before the virus gets me, this summer and this fall, we'll have a lot of that done. I want to give a report on habitat right now to Martin County. So they know where these fish are. And the fishermen have just been incredible. These guys actually have targeted these fish and send me photographs every week. And the larger ones, some of these gobies aren't caught on hook and line, but nor the pipefish. But we need the kids out after them when the water's not toxic.
Do you also have pictures of their juvenile stage?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
Because the kids are seining through the summer at some of the camps, and it would be nice for them to be able to identify some of these cryptic species.
Yeah.
Yes, we have the juveniles illustrations too, and they in some cases look quite different from the adults. So,
Mark, I have a question of someone that put in the chat. And it's from Diane. It says, I live in Port St. Lucie where there is no use in planting the smartweed because they spray the canal and marshes with glyphosate to get rid of invasive plants. It's quite cheap. I don't know if there's something, let me see what the city doesn't like.
Diane Goldberg of St. Lucie.
Oh, okay, got it, okay.
And I think she's getting sent to the magistrate because she has too much natural landscaping. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, geez.
Well, anyway, she said she needs some help up there, and but anyway, we'll is Diane still on there? If not, Mark, we might want to move on then to the
real quick on Diane's thing. There's a guy up in Indian River County who's managed to change the city of Sebastian around to not spray herbicides. And so I think comparing notes of efforts in the different counties, that'd be handy because there's more and more awareness of their impact, not only on these endangered species, but on the fisheries. on the snook fisheries and other fisheries that we have out there.
That's a good
And
point.
so there was an effort in Indian River County in the city of Sebastian, which changed the whole herbicide treatment situation in the city. And that's another one of these GDC developments, Sebastian Highlands. So it can be done.
Yeah,
You
so
just have enough people.
we'll have to kind of follow up with that and work with that. I think that's really important to get this communication out to all of these cities and municipalities and communities around the watershed, so that we know what they're applying, what they're using. So they need to be educated on why it's critical not to use it and not to apply it.
Mark, are you aware of the Clean Water Coalition in Indian River County?
Yes, yeah, I was aware of that.
Yeah,
Wayne
they've
Mills
been
and
instrumental in doing a lot of that. And I think Diane, maybe Diane isn't aware of that.
yeah, we'll put her in touch. We'll try to make that connection.
Okay.
Hey, thanks again, Grant. Really appreciate it. And stay on, please, if you can, or if you will, and please stay in touch. We're going to move on to the kind of segue into Martin County and start our government and agency kind of progress reports according to our agenda.
Well, that'd be great to hear. Yeah.
So if you want to pull up the agenda, Daryl, or is John on?
Sure.
The line?
I was just gonna. I'm just looking for
John
Mr. Mayo there.
Yeah, yes, I'm on. I just unmuted.
yeah,
Can you hear me?
I need to get you to do that. Let me see.
John can share his screen.
It's just on.
Yeah, I need to find him on my master list here. I'll find it.
There we go.
There we go.
See that?
Oh, you got it. Okay, got
John.
it. You're up. Yeah.
John, we can't see you, but go ahead and introduce yourself. It's John.
I'll highlight him here. I'll pin him.
Okay.
So thanks, Mark. Thanks, Rivers Coalition, for the opportunity to give an update on Martin County. I'm not sharing video because I don't have the TV set that Dr. Gilmore does.
Okay.
Dr. Gilmore for that presentation. We all know that we live in a special place, but the way that you qualify scientifically is extremely helpful. So we look forward to submitting a petition with you, hopefully before too long. I have three things I wanted to cover. I committed to Mark that I would try to keep it to 5 minutes, so this is going to go quick. First of all, and maybe most importantly, I'm pleased to announce that that your Board of County Commissioners submitted a letter to Congress this week expressing their support for the Army Corps' position that LOSUM would not be subject to water savings clause restrictions. That's something that I know we've all been tuned into the last few weeks, and it was unanimously supported by our board, and the letter's been well received. We've gotten some feedback from some of the committee members already, so no commitments, but as of now, the Senate committee that houses WRDA has passed their language to the Senate floor. That does not include the water savings clause, of course, and floor debate, it could always be amended. And then on the House side, the staff for the Transportation and Water Infrastructure Committee have sent their draft to the committee. It has not been taken up by the committee yet, but the draft that the staff created does not contain the proposed language that would attach water savings clause to LOSUM. So that's good. We hope that it stays that way through the legislative process. We'll stay tuned to that and keep you posted if there's opportunities to weigh in. Secondly, I wanted to just kind of wrap up our BMAP conversation that we've had the last few months. The county rested its challenge of the 2020 BMAP iteration. We came to an agreement with the DEP on some cooperation that they're going to commit to moving forward that I think is going to be very, very helpful. And we're looking forward to diving into those areas in the preparation for the next iteration. But as it stands, Martin County's allocations for load reductions did go up. However, we're still at 90% achieved for nitrogen and about 47% for phosphorus. And I'll caveat that with projects that we have already identified for completion will far outpace the load allocations from the DEP. So we may when this is all said and done, we may hit 200% of our load allocations just if we're able to do the projects that we've already identified. So your staff at Martin County are excited to dive into the next round of projects. We've just issued an RFP for, actually, I think we awarded the contract for a vendor to help us create the next update for our water quality needs assessment that will help identify the next round of projects and kind of guide our fundraising efforts and planning, design, construction of stormwater and water quality improvement projects. So we're excited. Maybe by the end of the year, we'll have some new projects, and that'll be informed by new data that we haven't had in the past. And so we expect to learn some things and to have some new direction. Then the last thing I was going to talk about briefly is we've moved into a pretty critical stage in LOSUM. I know other people are going to discuss LOSUM, and the county's participation in that is really going to ramp up over the next few months, as particularly the plan formulation and modeling subteam start to balance and define performance measure impacts by different schedules and different model runs. And we're getting into this stage where, everybody's been putting forward their different interests as stakeholders, and we've been quantifying them over the last 6 months, trying to determine, okay, well, how do we determine if there's an exceedance or compliance when we run the models? Well, now we're moving into the stage where they actually start to run those models and create balance, because they're going to have to be give and take. And the chart that you're looking at, Katie worked with a couple of our consultants to digest some of the data, really that is informed by the 2020 Recover performance measure work that's about to become final. That new performance measure says that at 1,400 CFS of freshwater input to the St. Lucie estuary, we have we're at a stress level. And at 1,700, that's at a damaging level. Those numbers have shifted down several hundred CFS from the LORS 08 performance, or the Recover 2007 performance measures. So that's a good thing. But what we really need to be diligent about is making sure that the Recover analysis that computes that with cumulative water sources, so that includes the C23, 24, 10 Mile Creek, freshwater, rainfall, everything that falls locally, as well as lake discharges, that gets rolled in as a cumulative. So what happened in LORS 08 is they really drafted that schedule, treating the S80 discharges from the lake as the only freshwater input. And so we've been very diligent on this plan formulation modeling subteam to clarify that issue. And this is going to help tremendously. This chart shows under the new Recover performance measure, there's a dashed line there at 1,400 CFS towards the bottom. So you can see how often we are kind of exceeding that stress level in the estuary without any lake input. And then on this other chart, you can see what the lake input does. It fattens all of those freshwater volume events and raises them. But when you really get to the analysis, you see it's really startling. I'll just point out a couple of these. If we qualify freshwater inputs cumulatively and add the Lake O discharges, 25% of every year on average, we exceed the stress level. That's 92, it's almost a third of every year on average. We are in exceedance of stress level for our ecosystem. If you go to the damaging levels and lake discharges, it's 20% of every year. The best case scenario in this analysis, if we had no lake discharges, we're just with our local runoff and groundwater and C23, 24, 10 Mile Creek, we are in the stress level of freshwater flows to the estuary 15% of the time. These are completely unacceptable numbers if our goal is water quality in the estuary and a healthy ecology. And we're working hard. It's a little bit like comparing apples to oranges, but we're working very hard to try and illustrate the imbalance that we anecdotally understand. But we met some of the other stakeholders invested in this LOSUM process. Their performance measures are different, and they use different metrics, and they're just measuring different things. So the challenge is to try and illustrate imbalance and to achieve a better balance in LOSUM. But when we're comparing apples and oranges, but just imagine if water supply were negatively impacted nearly a third of every year. That would be completely unacceptable. So we hope to in the next few months to make that argument very clear. We sent some of this data to the plan formulation and modeling sub-team this week at their request. We believe they're open to it, and we think we have opportunities to make a substantial impact in the establishment of the new lake schedule with this very thing. It's, I like illustrations, so it's really, if we were designing a car, this step in the process is determining how much horsepower the car has. So we'll be pretty engaged. We'll try to give regular updates. Our webpage we'll try to keep updated if you want to follow along with this process and see what the county's doing. We've committed to being more transparent, and so please check the webpage frequently. That's all I have.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I know that John has just kind of covered LOSUM and how Recover. This is the resource, this is the restoration, coordination, and verification. That's what Recover stands for. And this has been in a process since the beginning of restoration efforts, and it's run by the district to basically look at, what do the resources need to recover. And so they've, as John says, changed these metrics, or they're proposing to change these metrics, and they're going to apply them to the LOSUM process. And our input has been very similar by the county, and the city is going to weigh in too in a minute. But we're basically talking that they need to consider all inputs and when they're considering it to the estuary, meaning the C23, C24, all the other inflows that add up to that 1,400 before they consider what they're going to put in from the lake. So in other words, they need to look at, we have a base flow into the estuary of about 300 CFS from groundwater inflow and others. So we already have some inflow naturally. But then there's rain runoff that occurs, and then the canal discharges from those major canals I mentioned are also draining into the watershed, from the watershed into the estuary. So they need to be considered in this. And on our calls for Recover, many of us participated. We weighed in on that, and the comments are due by May 28th, which is next week. So I know the City of Stewart's weighing in on that, and others. And we'll go to the City of Stewart kind of report, and then we'll get some comments on that as well. So do we have Ben or Commissioner Matheson? I think you're on too. Would you like to comment on that? Or make the City of Stewart report? Either Ben Hogarth, I don't know if Ben's on.
Ben, are you on?
No, go ahead, Merritt, if you want to start out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The city is weighing in and definitely going to be supporting Dr. Gilmore's petition and the county's petition on endangered species. That's all great work, and we're so lucky to have him and his research. And, we're drafting, I know, Mark, we've sent you some draft comments for the Recover effort as well. That's the big flaw, as John Mayle pointed out, is that historically the Corps hasn't factored in our natural runoff into the estuary, and they're basing all the inflows on discharges out of the St. Lucie Canal, that unnatural canal. And so any of those basically put us in a stressful level above and beyond what we naturally get. And our comments and the county's comments are going to be focused on that for this Recover effort, which is going to be used as a basis in drafting LOSUM as we move forward in their modeling. So that's incredibly important. City of Stewart a few meetings ago adopted a vision statement, of our desire, our uniform desire of zero discharges out the S80. And with that, we would be reaching, the up to the stressful discharges just naturally, as John pointed out in his graphs. So, our comments are being drafted for that issue kind of in the next few days, and we're definitely in support and thankful to have the county to lean on a little bit in this exercise and their data. Other than that, not too much of an update. I don't know if any other city commissioners are on the call or not in this meeting. So I always have to be aware of that.
Yeah, it's true. Well, we appreciate your input and your flow, and I saw those letters, and I appreciate the city taking some active steps along with the county to kind of make sure we all weigh in as a government agency into this process.
Absolutely.
Any question, or we can move on to Jackie's with us from. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us today with the Water Management District. And if you would, I know there's a lot going on with the district situation, the governing board meeting recently, and perhaps you can, help us understand some of the things that are happening there. Thanks.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good to see everyone. I'll talk about the positive and the negative things. The positive things are the district has been filling up the STA area for the C44 right there in Martin County, which is good. The reservoir is not completed yet, but they are filling up the STA. The district is removing Tamiami Trail, getting all of that going, and that has to happen for the water to flow south. And the district has also, as you know, gotten the permits that it needs to start the intake canal for the EAA reservoir. So those are all wonderful things. Staff has done a great job with dealing with our new way of communication. On our meetings, we don't have people's faces. So it's all just talking, and I think the public has really appreciated that, because basically everybody's on the same level. Everybody has a voice, nobody has a face, and everybody's equal making their comments. The only difference for me is I have a vote, and it's great. And many people have asked us to continue that kind of situation even after COVID-19 goes away or something. The negative things, or the things that I do that make my blood boil, but it's just the way it is. We're all talked about on our meeting. A lot of public comment. The district stood with the Army Corps with the separation of the, the savings clause from LOSUM, which was very controversial. We continued the public comments for 40E61, which is rulemaking. Some of that was kind of nullified by the state legislature pulling a rabbit out of a hat at the last moment, but nonetheless, staff thinks a lot of those things can be implemented. And I was just on that call, and it's very complex, but it's very important as far as nitrogen and phosphorus limitations into the waterways. And last but not least, the EAA reservoir now has a new start status, or that's where it is right now. I've been told that could change. People are working, powerful people are working on having that not be the case. But in a nutshell, what that does is it removes the EAA reservoir from SERP, making it a new start and not allowing funding to happen until at least next year. And people say that with great hope, because we all know that next year it's going to be a different world with our economy and with funding. And so as far as I'm concerned, we should do everything we can to push back on that New Start status, because we fought like hell to get there. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jackie. I know there's the raise your hand function under the chat function on your your thing in the lower right corner. But if you want to just go ahead and raise your hand or voice out, we can hear you. Yeah. Question?
Yeah,
So Jackie, thank you for updating that. I know that the EA New Start is a big issue, and a lot of organizations are working to, perhaps through the administration, through the president's office and other areas, to ask the Corps of Engineers to change their mind. We all witnessed a U.S. House hearing where one of our House representatives, our delegation from Florida, was questioning the General Semonite from the Corps. And General Semonite was saying their legal counsel has listed this as a new start. And she adamantly disagreed with him and said it shouldn't be a new start. It should be part of, as you all remember, the post-authorization change report that we got when we amended that amended the Central Everglades planning project to include the EA reservoir as that project and as part of that. So the argument is it's not a new start. It should be part of the Central Everglades planning project, and that's the way it should be. What it does is delay any kind of start of construction and funding. They still had some funding in their budget for FY21 to do some more planning and work. And as you all know, the district has started and has permits and has already started, as Jackie said, on working with the STA and the connection canals and things like that. So the district's already started to work on the project. It's now, time the Corps stepped up and not designate this new start, but just let's get going on it.
Mark, Mike Connor has a question.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, Jackie, hi, good morning. Is this new start designation a function of funds shortage, or just a little shell game with the money to shift monies elsewhere to the IRL South projects, for instance, that the Corps feels are more vital at this time? Or can you explain that further? Why is it just a funding function, the new start designation? And
I think I'm not at a level to answer that question,
okay.
But my guess would be that they look at it as a construction function, or a definitely a fund linked to a funding function. And yes, one of the bittersweet or wonderful things that seems to be happening, and with the Corps, you always have to take it with a grain of salt, obviously. But Colonel Kelly and Drew Bartlett went before the Martin County Commission, as Mr. Mayo will say, yay, and they, it presumably $130 million is headed in the direction for the C23, C24 reservoir. The Corps will tell you it was always like that. They are in charge, and then there are the expectations of the rest of us, and that's why it's so important for us to have good relationships with the Army Corps of Engineers. But I would imagine that is considered a construction monetary change for them. They would not consider it a shell game.
Do you think that, Jackie, just a question, do you think the governing board of the district will weigh in on that new start issue and send something to the Corps of Engineers about that, or have you already? Or
I hope so. That seemed to be the request of our board at the last meeting. I haven't seen a follow-up to that yet, but I felt that direction was given for us to do that. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for being here. Really appreciate those updates. Paul, we're going to Lake Okeechobee next. I see Paul Gray's on. Thanks, Paul, for joining us.
Hi, Mark. Thanks. And I missed the memo and didn't join till 11, so I'm sorry if I repeat stuff. But for the Okeechobee update, the lake said 11.1 feet. That is a very good start for the summer as far as estuary releases. It doesn't mean we'll avoid them. The year that Irma hit, we started at 11 feet and ended up at 17. So, you know, that gets back to we need to build the EAA reservoir and all these other reservoirs to try to help modulate the lake. But it's a good start. Snail kites did not nest on the lake for a second year in a row because it's just too low. Wading bird nesting's a little off. It's okay to have, you know, occasional years where it doesn't work right, but, you know, we don't want to do this every year. But other than that, and there's a bloom going on in the lake right now too, of maybe 1/4 of the open water. The intensity of it and how it's spread is a little bit unclear because we just don't have that much sampling. We have some satellite photos, but the good news is it's not going to start going to the estuary anytime soon. So, so I think we're in real good shape to start the summer. Looks like the rainy season's kicked in, and so here we go.
Thank you, Paul. Was I able to share the screen? Can you all see?
Yeah, you're up, Mark.
Yeah, you see the current level of the lake's at 11.14, and there's actually discharges are going backwards in from the canal at -98 CFS actually back into there. There is a very little bit going out to the Caloosahatchee right now over to the west coast. These numbers have kind of stopped, the S354, 351, and 352, but up until now, they've been really extensive at about 3,000 or 4,000 CFS going into the EAA for irrigation, but nothing really into the water conservation areas 2, 1, 2, and 3. So consequently, this has been a real dry situation down here, except for local rainfall, especially the top of 3A. The muck soils are well below, actually the extensively below their schedule, but also below ground. So it exposes a lot of the muck soils in the top part of the Everglades area, the water conservation area 3A. So we need to kind of keep iterating during these lake schedule and changes, is that we want lake water to go south, particularly in the dry season, and to let it go south for rehydrating these wetland areas in the Everglades during this dry season, all the way down to Florida Bay as well, because we're critically exposing a lot of the muck soils that oxidize off, and we're losing that. The lake people, go ahead, Paul.
No, sorry to interrupt. I'm really glad you brought this up because the Caloosahatchee has been having trouble getting enough water recently, and they're a little bit saltier than they want to be. But there's no provision in LORS to send any water to the water conservation areas right now. And when we work on LOSUM, we need to make that a provision that Lake Okeechobee water should be going to the Everglades when the Everglades needs it. And unfortunately, it's not going because, you know, we're trying to leave water in the lake for water supply, but, you know, water supply is not supposed to have priority over natural systems if they need water. So just as we go forward with LOSUM, let's try to make sure that if the Everglades needs water from Lake Okeechobee, that we figure out a way to get water to them.
Right. Good point. Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate it. Kind of going on to any other state reports or any other. The legislature is not in session, but they did pass that appropriations amendment in Section 85 of the Appropriations Bill 5003. It was that appropriations that made the 40E61 go to monitoring only, and the district has released the phase 1 for the monitoring of 40E61, but they all need to participate in those 40E61 workshops and really help to beef up that rule back to the enforcement rule for water quality to expand on the watershed. So we can talk about some of the local rivers updates. I think Nick Mader, are you up? Or Nick or Todd?
Yeah, I'm here. Unfortunately, I have a puppy that's barking. So the only thing I have to say about River Kids is that unfortunately we could not print the workbook, and I think most people know that now. Southeastern Printing was going to print it for us at a good discount, and sorry about the puppy. So we are going to go ahead and print that next year. and before the teachers use it. So anyway, that's all I have to go. I'm going to mute myself out. Sorry.
Mark, do you want to drop your screen sharing, please?
Okay.
Yeah, just for a while. There you go.
Okay. Okay. So I can share another.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. That was up during Nick's. So if there's a way that you can drop your screen sharing when
sure
you can bring it back up. Sorry about that.
So let me try to do that if I can.
Daryl, do you want me to drop out?
Only if your time is short.
So
no, this is interesting. It's like
no, you don't need to drop out. No, not at all.
So here's the kind of the update. It's been pretty good in conditions. I won't stay long on this, but it's pretty good conditions throughout the estuary. We have kind of, because of the COVID-19, they're limiting the number of people sampling, but they're still able to go to their docks and their waterfronts and be able to take samples. So as you can see, conditions have been in this good range for many weeks now, and we're working on that. Mike, do you want to show or share your video of that?
Yeah, well, I don't have a setup to put on. I do have the video on my cell phone. I think this could work. I'm going to see how this looks to you. Here we go. And this was taken by Allie Preston's father from Bullshire, and they were at Sailfish Flats a week ago, and I'm going to give this a shot. Am I on screen?
Mike, actually, if you go to the screen share, I believe there is an option to link up an iPhone if you want to try to work on that.
You can link the iPhone? I'm about 8% on my iPhone. I'm going to lose the power here.
Okay, go ahead.
This could work. Hang on, bear with me 1 second.
I think yeah.
Pardon my cracked screen, but this is a video underwater snorkeling off the small island right off of the sandbar. And you can see it's a great mix of what I'm seeing is manatee grass, shoal grass. There's some macroalgae in there. Folks did not grab a sample for me, but you can see where this is. It's right on Sailfish Flats. And that's about a week ago. And Allie's father reports it's thicker and more dense than it was a month ago. So that was a pretty good video. It's on the Facebook page, Indian River Keeper, if you want to look at it in better quality. But I hope you can see that somewhat. That's pretty promising. This is what I've been seeing. And as you can imagine, during COVID, I couldn't launch a boat for the longest time. But I do have some screenshots of some areas on the west side of the river.
Can you see it here?
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
It really looks healthy. It really does.
Yeah, it does. And you know, for the original quality, I could see definitely manatee grass and shoal grass, and a few things I couldn't identify. And of course, the macroalgae are mixed in, gracilaria a little bit. I've seen that about 3 weeks ago. I was there. I wasn't on that very same piece of the flat, but yeah, it's pretty promising.
Yeah, it was great.
This is North Jensen, the whole area on west winds this last 2 weeks. It has been just like this. Bahamas clear. What I'm seeing, you can see how clear this water is, but what I am seeing, this is at downtown Jensen. I'm seeing a lot of this stuff. I'm seeing a lot of the red drift algae like that. Lots of red drift algae. The west side of the river, when the winds are out of the east, I don't even bother looking at the east side of the river because it's, west winds is so muddy. But the west side gives you a clear view. And when the wind does shift to the east, Mark, everybody, I'm seeing piles of red drift algae. On some areas, it's more than ankle deep on the sand, on the shoreline along the docks.
Mike, pull your camera just a little bit away from there. There you go. That's a little better.
So that's what I'm seeing a lot of. You know, this is during non-discharge times, and the water is beautiful. But you know, this is maybe Grant could chime in on this a little bit, or anybody else that wants to talk about this in relation to nutrient inputs.
Did anybody take a sample of the algae there?
Yeah.
I have in the past, but I did not lately. But you can get buckets full of this, and I can get that easily today.
Yeah, you could bring some over to us. It looks like gracilaria of some kind.
Yeah, gracilaria, and I guess that's what we're calling red drift. We call it tumbleweed, right, Grant? Tumbleweed.
Yeah, it's actually very important food for the fish in the seagrasses. And we published papers years ago on it as a habitat, actually, which drifts around the lagoon. That's what you eat in the Japanese restaurants when you have seaweed salad too.
My question is, how much is too much?
Well, that's always been a collect, but and we worried about it back in the 70s.
Yeah.
But actually, that's the prime food for the whole system, and the seagrasses is Gracilaria and the other macroalgae. Go out at night and put your flashlight down in that pile of drift algae. It'll go out with the amphipods eating that stuff. I often felt if I fell down on the beach at night, I'd be a skeleton by morning. But they just clean it up overnight, and of course the amphipods are then eaten by the fish and all that. So the question has always been is what about too much? But I don't think we had too much back then. We had really good seagrass.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. As eyes on the lagoon and everywhere too, everybody's got kind of our eyes on the Indian River and St. Lucie River. So it's a time we want to share as members. Do we have any member comments or thoughts or announcements about upcoming meetings and things?
Mark, this is Daryl. I just wanted to mention that we were actually, next month, we were scheduled on a Wednesday night meeting. But I think everybody might stay posted of the date and time again. But we are scheduled for a 6 o'clock meeting, but we can change that if it's daytime.
Hey,
Depends
Mark.
on conditions out there. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I want to ask Grant. I've seen a very unnatural phenomenon in the North Fork, and I don't think you'd want to snorkel up there. It's absolutely clogged with jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Big jellyfish.
Yeah. What kind of jellyfish?
Do you know the difference between a ctenophore and a jellyfish, or the ctenophores by any chance, or comb jellies?
I've seen them before with the small ones, but some of these are like 2 feet across.
Oh,
cannonballs, maybe, huh?
Like cannonball jelly?
Yeah,
wow.
they're big, like a parachute.
Cannonballs.
But it's absolutely thick. You can't cast without catching them.
Now, where are they?
North Fork?
How far up?
Anywhere in the North Fork.
Todd Thurlow's got a big.
From the Roseville Bridge up.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay.
Yeah, they look like they're pretty large if you can photo them like that. So
yeah,
we periodically we get those kind of things up in the system, but whether it's a spawn or something happens, it's like Portuguese man of war all of a sudden appearing on the beach. But it could be a cause for concern if we get that persisting, I guess, in those waterways.
Yeah, this is another unusual thing about the St. Lucie. The Clusac.
Well, as our meeting kind of winds down, I really appreciate everybody coming in to the meeting. We'll try to have our next scheduled one be the same, June 24th at 6 p.m. to 7:30. This might allow a little different attendance, but we'll put out the Zoom meeting kind of attendance then unless conditions change and we're allowed to have some gatherings or people feel safer about having gatherings in groups. But as you know, the City of Stewart, thank you for hosting us so much in the past, but having a closed meeting inside the city chambers there was going to be very, very difficult to kind of perceive if we're going to have that available by June or not. So we're just going to go ahead and make sure we at least schedule it and have it as this kind of Zoom meeting to get everybody up to date and go forward. So with that, if there's no other comments or announcements, there is a 40E61 meeting today at 5:30 p.m. that I think we sent out a notice about. And there's one on June 3rd as well, which is coming up on next month, of Wednesday on June 3rd at 10 a.m. So
can I ask John Mayle for him to email me his three recover photos?
Yeah, John, can you do that, please? Thanks.
Certainly, no problem. In fact, I can share the whole report.
Oh,
And
thank you. Thank you.
Great. And if it doesn't have to stop here, if you come across some announcements or meetings coming up or things that we need to let the Rivers Coalition members know about, please send it to Barbara and at info@riverscoalition.org so we can get that out, put it on the website and get that updated. So really appreciate that.
Yep, Mark,
Mark?
or Daryl, I just kind of wanted to double down on what Daryl had said, is that I believe the schedule for the June meeting will be 11 o'clock and not 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So you have
Well,
another.
that would, I think it's going to depend on whether Stewart City Hall opens up. But yeah, the option would be if we don't have it on the Wednesday night, it would be a Thursday at 11.
At 11, not 10 o'clock. This is an unusual event.
Right. So normally they're at 11 o'clock on Thursdays, and then the next meeting though was our Wednesday evening one, which was supposed to be 6 to 7:30. So
Jackie, this Friends of the Everglades conversations, how do we get on that?
I think the way they do it is it's Facebook Live.
Okay.
And so you go to Friends of the Everglades Facebook page, and then they have the three people speaking, and you enter your questions via Facebook, and some will be chosen.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for that announcement. Appreciate it.
And it's Nick, really quickly, I just wanted to add something because my dog was barking, but that if anybody's interested in getting the updated River Kids workbook, it is online on our Rivers Coalition website under the tab River Kids and Workbook. So I didn't get to say that. And I also am hoping in the future for River Kids to possibly work with Dr. Gilmore on, like the board had talked about a few months ago, maybe putting something together like a poster or something that we could do and get out to the, to all the teachers in the school about our endangered species in the Indian River Lagoon, because kind of showcasing that would really hit home with people here in the county, knowing that there really are so many endangered species here. So just to note that.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. I wanted to say to everyone, this will probably be my last public presentation for a while. I'm going to lay low and write some books. And of course, the virus kind of helping me out with that. But I wanted to see everybody here that I haven't seen in a while. Thank everybody for their help over the years. And notice Jim Harder was on there. He's helped me with the fish too. And it's good to see everybody. I don't think I'll have any more Zoom conferences. I'm going to lay low. And but I would help with the public education efforts when I'm approached. And so that's not going to be cut off, but everything else probably will.
Yeah, thanks so much, Grant. Really appreciate you joining us today and giving us this great information. And if you can follow up with just kind of keeping us up to date or informed on any ID of the endangered species, or if there's an upcoming Martin County meeting, just let Barbara know so we can circulate it amongst our Rivers Coalition and get everybody to turn out to the meeting. But keep us updated, if you will, on your progress on that, and educate us more about these endangered species and threatened species we have here in our estuary. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you for.
Thank Pipefish.
Thank Pipefish.
His name's Augie, by the way.
Augie?
Yeah, Augie.
Not Pogo.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again. Look forward to our next meeting. We'll talk to you soon, and keep eyes on the river. Let us know.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.